I see what ho, chaps and chappets, Game Chap and Bertie here.
Yes.
Yes, indeed, fellows, and I dare say we are now discussing how the balance changes in the latest patch for Super Smash Bros. On Wii U and 3DS, because it seems a number of the game's characters, in fact, dare I say a very large number of them, have received some tweaks as a result of this update and the general gameplay balance and pleasant experience changes that Nintendo like to make with each update.
Right, okay, so just to be clear then, this update you're talking, this is not the DLC we had the last couple of days, this is an actual update, yes?
In fact, this update is part of that very same DLC. That's right. This was the update that introduced the Hyrule Castle stage, Peach's Castle, and what have you.
So it is, right, okay, so if you have that update on your, Wii U, whatever it is, these changes will now be in effect. So,
Yes.
they've changed or tweaked or nerfed and buffed whatever certain characters, this is correct.
That's right indeed, and we are looking at a very large list of changes here, and
Whoa.
it seems the community has taken time to analyse these and find out who has changed and how. So we are reporting on these now.
Most certainly we are, yes indeed. Now, as you know, there's lots of characters out there that people say are good and bad or whatever, but let's have a look at these and see what you think about what they've done. Now, just looking here, we've got Bowser Jr., for example, just going straight in with him.
Right.
Now, he has had his cannonball damage increased.
I see. Okay, that's right. Now, the fully charged damage of that cannonball has been buffed by about 2% up to 20% from 18% before, so therefore we're seeing quite an interesting increase there to a character who seems otherwise unchanged.
Right, okay, so here's a little bit of increase on the old cannonball there. Rather interesting. So let's look at Captain Falcon. Now, he's had something done to his back hair, slightly decreased there.
A slight nerf indeed to Falcon's back aerial there, fellows, by about 1% or so, I think. And also, his rapid jabs, that is his fast standard jab attack, seems to have been moved somewhat closer to the captain than it was before, so perhaps has slightly less range than it did previously.
So he's got a shorter jab?
Yeah, so therefore he's basically had a bit of a nerf here, and I do hope this won't mean we see a string of nerfs for Captain Falcon.
Most certainly interesting on that one there. So Charizard.
Or Charizard, as the case may be.
Well, you can say Charizard, whatever you like. So now what he had done, something done with his sweet spot, I believe.
On the forward tilt, that's right, the sweet spot has been increased slightly, the damage thereof rather, by about 1% again, and also it seems indeed that a new wind box has been added to his down tilt move, which means that if you're trying to use it at point blank range, it will hit. So therefore we are seeing a very slight sort of buff there to Charizard. Dark Pit, meanwhile, has seen the damage fractionally increased on his Silver Bow, but we are talking a very, very small increase on the Silver Bow damage there.
Very interesting. Now, Diddy Kong, a front runner, or used to be certainly one of the top characters in the game.
Notorious character, yes.
Notorious, yes, indeed. Now, he's had his up smash hit made stronger than knockback.
Right, now it seems, fellows, as you may know, his up smash actually has 3 hits, where he does a triple swing of his fists there.
Yes.
Now, the first hit has a slightly increased knockback, as Bertie says. The second hit had the angle changed, and it seems some adjustments have been made to the hitboxes on hit number 3.
Right, so what does that mean for Diddy then?
Well, not too much, old chap, but certainly we do know that, as said there, the knockback on the first hit is slightly stronger, and if you do play Diddy Kong, you'll want to experiment with his up smash to see how it's changed. Also, slightly greater knockback, a slight buff on his down smash there. At higher percents, of course, the knockback growth has been slightly increased, which means overall I'd say a slight buff to Diddy Kong there after his previous savage nerfing.
Most certainly, yes, they certainly hacked into him before.
Yes.
Brought a little bit around there, perhaps, so those players of Diddy Kong will be interested in that. So,
Yes.
what about Donkey Kong? If you play Donkey Kong, does anyone play Donkey Kong?
I think they do, yes. Donkey Kong
I
has
suppose
some
they
fans,
do.
yes.
So, now, what's happened to Donkey Kong then?
Well, we of course know he's a very low tier character at the moment, but it seems to me as if his cargo up throw, that is to say the throw where he grabs him on his back like so and throws him up into the air, has a lot less knockback now actually, and but that means you can actually combo that move into an up aerial attack. Also, various other tweaks have been made to him, technical tweaks, that seems to me as if he has a slight overall buff there, but really this is nothing to write home to mother about. It's very, very small, slight things. Although, again, certainly if you do play DK, you're going to want to experiment to find out exactly how these changes affect him in regards to his dash attack, his up smash, and forward smash.
Right, so if you're a player of Donkey Kong, a real almost pro player as it were, know him inside and out, you may well pick these things up, even though they're small.
That's right, yes indeed. Now we move, of course, then to Dr. Mario.
Yes.
Now, Dr. Mario's actually had a bit of a buff there. Again, quite a small buff, but his up smash now knocks the opponent further and higher percents. So this very much a damage-focused, slightly slow character has received another buff to his powerful up smash move.
So the up smash move, Dr. Mario, increased if you're a Dr. Mario player. So looking at Fox then, now Fox has had some rather good sort of buffing stuff done there, with his jab certainly.
Yes, it seems to me as if his jab has received quite an interesting increase in knockback growth, which again is the amount of knockback caused at high percentages. However, it does mean that apparently the infinite jab of Fox is gone. It's no longer possible. You can't do that as a result of the knockback changes on his jab.
Right, so that change has caused that infinite jab to go then.
Yes.
But I understand the jab knockback there growth is some nearly double, I think.
Indeed, it seems, Old Boy, that's quite right. Also, his blast move has slightly less ending lag on the blaster, so therefore perhaps you'll be able to use that more reliably and safely from now on.
Maybe.
Now, Ganon the Melon, or Ganondorf, has also received a slight buff. We are seeing 1 or 2% increases in damage from his forward aerial there, as opposed to previously. Also, his up throw now does 3% more damage, which is quite considerable, I have to say.
Ah, and that's rather interesting. So he's already a bit of a hitter anyway, so they've even increased some area of that now, making him even stronger.
That's right, his Skull Crusher move, the forward aerial there, has received a slight boost in damage and also his up throw. Meanwhile, the aerial Ganon Kick now has a slightly higher damage on opponents' shields. So in other words, if you aerially kick down to their shields, it'll cause more shield damage.
So the already powerful Ganondorf has been made somewhat more powerful now.
That's right, I think he needs all the power he can get, old chap, but certainly
he has been
powered up, that's true, old boy.
Okay, so Greninja now has had something done with the startup frames, actually I think decreased there, for his water shuriken.
Shuriken, that's right, it seems his water shuriken is now slightly faster. Indeed, I have to say, also, the ending lag on his down throw has been reduced. So basically, they haven't nerfed Greninja. Wait a minute, no, steady on. Yes, they have nerfed Greninja, because his down throw now does 5% instead of 6. So there you go, awfully sorry fails, but he's been nerfed again. But also buffed in other areas, so it's not all bad news.
Shuriken thing. I mean,
the shuriken, well, yeah,
isn't it?
I suppose so. But less damage, old chap. I mean, well, there we are.
All right, then, because that's Greninja. So Kirby
has had various tweaks here and there with a couple of small nerfs and a couple of small buffs. However, overall, he's largely the same character, with perhaps a few tweaks to his jabs and forward throw, etc., and so forth. Link has received a similar treatment. I do believe his dash grab and also his turning or pivot grab are now very, very slightly faster, but only again very, very fractionally there. Little Mac, meanwhile, has received a very, very slight buff in the form of his jumping jolt haymaker. The hitbox on that is now 2 frames longer than it was before, so therefore a higher chance to hit the foe, and again other very, very small tweaks, including to his straight lunge, I believe.
Right, okay, so Little Mac there has had some tweaks, probably favourably there, a bit of buffing going on there.
Very small, that's right.
So looking at Lucas, what's happened to Lucas?
Well, again, we are seeing an interesting sort of a set of minor tweaks to Lucas. I mean, we would expect quite a lot of tweaking to the new DLC characters, because of course they have only just been released, but we are seeing, various adjustments to his range, small tweaks to his knockback here and there, a sour spot damage adjustment on his forward aerial by 1%, etc. and so forth. Only very minor things, again, for Lucas.
Okay, so minor things there. Now, Lucina, I believe, she's received a small buff in some areas.
She has, that's right. I mean, we are looking at a very, very small damage increase, again, by about 1% on her neutral aerial and her up tilt moves. And also, there are slightly more input frames on her dancing blade attack now as well.
Okay, and now what about Luigi, number one?
Number one. Yes, that's right. Again, there we are seeing a very, very small changes overall, but we are seeing a drop of about 1% in damage on his forward aerial, which now does 8%. And also, it seems to me as if this super jump punch, that very, very powerful attack where he soars off into the sky, the sweet spot on that has been increased. So therefore, you have a higher chance to hit with it. Plus, the knockback has been increased at high percentages, so watch out for that move.
Well, watch out for that. Now, some of these, it doesn't seem like they've done a huge amounts, but obviously Nintendo think that these changes are key for the game, so when you're actually in the game playing fast game, these things take effect.
That's right. Meanwhile, we see similar changes to Marth here in line with Lucina. His neutral aerial has received a damage increase. However, various other tweaks have also been made to Marth in the forms of reductions from his landing lag on his various aerial moves, which again will only serve to make him more viable, so a slight overall buff to Marth, I think.
Right, okay, and Mega Man, if you play Mega Man, he now has a faster leaf shield shield, I think.
That's right indeed. The startup and spinning of his leaf shield are both now faster.
Most certainly. Now, Mewtwo. Shadow balls have been increased slightly. Very tiny, slightly bit, I think.
Just a very fractional increase to the power of the Shadow Ball, okay. And again, being a DLC character, we are seeing some tweaks to him there. His forward throw actually does about 2 to 3% more damage now than it did before, which is quite a large buff, I have to say.
That can change the game entirely.
That could really change things if you use it right, I have to say, indeed. We are looking at also a very, very fractional change to Ness, but it's so small it's hardly worth mentioning, so I wouldn't worry about that too much. Just a very small increase, one more frame of sweet spot on his down aerial hitbox.
Right, okay, and I think with... this was Ness you just said about.
Yes, that's right.
Most certainly. So Pac-Man. Now, what's been going on with Pac-Man? It seems his trampoline is a little bit later in terms of the frame, I think.
That's right. The hit rate does 5% on his trampoline apparently now comes out a frame or so later. And also, this is quite interesting with Pac-Man because a glitch has been returned back to Pac-Man. Can you believe this, old chap?
Really?
It seems to me as if the hydrant glitch is now back in effect on that character. So actually, we saw that Fox's Infinite has been removed, but now the hydrant glitch returns to Pac-Man, old chap.
Very interesting.
Most strange, I have to say.
That's come back in there now.
Right,
so
yes.
what about Palutena? I think Palutena is one of the very, very good player, but not a lot of people play her, I don't think.
No.
But, so what's been going on with her? I believe you have some slight buffs, is this correct?
I think so, that's right. We have some various range adjustments on some of her moves. I understand they've tweaked her air dodging, spot dodging, and rolling invisibility. And also, she's had a 1% increase on her forward aerial damage. So very slight buffs there. And overall, we are seeing that's the theme of this update, just slight buffs and minor tweaks here and there.
They're tweaking, but if they're doing it, then they must think it has some form of effect. Now, just looking at Peach there.
Princess Peach.
Princess Peach, there's no gameplay changes as it were. I think there's something to do with sound changes and a little bit of the effects, but nothing, in terms of actually playing the character.
So they've changed the way she looks and sounds, but the overall mechanics aren't changed. Okay. Also, they've taken out now the infinite attack on Pikachu's Thunder, so therefore you won't be able to use that over and over again infinitely in the way you could before. Now, also, a character who was considered to be somewhat weak in some areas before is, of course, Robin. Now, he or she, depending on who you play, has received some damage buffs to a number of attacks, including to his Thunder tome in all stages of the charge, or almost all, and also his aerial attacks.
Most certainly, yes, indeed. Quite a lot there, and as you say, different attacks, such as his L Thunder, things like that, increased. So overall, Robin has seen increases on most of his attacks, I think.
Yes, I think actually you can also now follow up a lot easier with his down throw, so overall Robin has received one of the largest buffs of this update.
It would seem that, yes, he's had, quite a lot of things stacked onto him. What about Shulk?
I'm really feeling it, and he will be really feeling a change here, Fidelis, because
I'm really feeling it.
Shulk's backslash is now a lot faster, old boy.
It most certainly is, so it's quite
by about 6 frames or so, I think, old chap. And also, various reductions to his lag in the forms of his dash attack now also has less ending lag on that particular move, plus a new hitbox on his up aerial, the first hit thereof. So we are seeing a slight change to Shulk there. Nothing too huge, but it could turn the tide of battle if you know how to use it.
It could well be. Now, Sonic has had a small nerf, I think.
A very small.
In terms of his forward smash.
That's right, his forward or side smash is now very slightly weaker at high percentages, so therefore you won't be able to knock people out quite as easily with that move. Meanwhile, Toon Link very, very slightly faster. Again, just fractional adjustments to his speed on his dash and pivot grabs. Also, the landing lag on his neutral aerial has been toned down a little bit.
It has indeed. Now, the Wii Fit Trainer, if you play the Wii Fit Trainer, I think she's been having some buffs in most areas, small but nevertheless there.
Actually, the Wii Fit Trainer has had a whole raft of buffs. I'm quite surprised, old chap.
Yes, down smash, up smash, all sorts.
Yes, that's right. Perhaps most importantly, her Sun's Salutation healing has now been doubled, so it now heals you by 2% instead of 1%.
Right.
Also, her down smash, up tilt, forward smash, and various other moves have had either their absolute damage or their knockback increased, along with a whole raft of her aerial moves. Plus, of course, she can now grab slightly lower than before, so you'll be able to grab shorter players and shorter enemies using her grab move. So overall, we are seeing a very large buff here in terms of this update to the Wii Fit Trainer. Again, nothing too huge or game-breaking, as it were, but quite a large buff all the same.
Right, okay, so what about Yoshi? What have they been up to with Yoshi then?
Yoshi, very, very technical changes to him. It seems indeed as if his back aerial move is now stopping its auto-cancel slightly earlier, about 5 frames or so than before, and also you can link slightly better with the back aerial. Zelda has had some interesting buffs there. Her jab now does more damage, the Phantom will push opponents, and the blind spot on it has been reduced slightly. Also, her down tilt, again, has had about a 1% buff buff there, along with a slight frame-out-of-frame change on her up-tilt move.
Right, very interesting. So little tweaks being done there, some in favour, some nerfing, some buffing. And now Zero Suit Samus, I don't think they've done anything to her actual gameplay itself.
No, it seems not, that's right. Just something to do with her entry animation, which is called Entry R, apparently. Which, again, nothing to do with the gameplay per se.
Right, okay, so what we've got there, we hope you find that interesting, all these things that they've been doing. And no doubt this will have an effect on gameplay, because certainly they've obviously done it, they feel it's important. So they might not sound like huge things, but these could be critical when you're in a game.
That's right, they certainly could, old boy. Again, we have seen quite an interesting set of buffs here, most notably perhaps to Robin, the Wii Fit trainer, and Ganondorf.
Yes.
Other characters like Captain Falcon have had very, very, very slight nerf on the whole, but I think it's important to realise here that I don't think this update's going to change the game too much, just in small and minor ways. However, if you are a specialist in any of the characters we've been mentioning, you may wish to take them into training mode and find out exactly how these changes are going to affect your gameplay. I certainly know I'm going to be wise to the fact that Captain Falcon's back aerial now does less damage.
Most certainly, yes indeed. Rather interesting changes there for a very popular game now.
That's right, fellows. We hope you've enjoyed this rather interesting summary of this big update with all those changes. Plus, of course, no doubt you're enjoying, as we are, the new features of the update, such as the stages, etc. and so forth, tourney mode and whatnot. This hasn't been Game Chap and Bertie, then. Thank you most kindly for joining us, fellows, I say. I look forward to seeing you once more on the next exciting out of my word. Until then...